What's your big highlight, big headline from the last session, Governor Burgum?
Well, Scott, first of all, great to be with you, and thanks for you and all the team do here helping keep all the citizens informed on what's going on the important issues of the day. But we're just closing out the 2023 legislative session in North Dakota, and of course, we're grateful that we live in a state that's got such a robust economy and so many natural resources, because that allows us to do two things at once. We can invest in smart things that help have high return on investment for taxpayers, and we can send money back to taxpayers and do tax relief, and we can do both. So we're building a better, stronger operations to serve the citizens, and we're also sending back historic tax relief to the citizens. $515 million, most significant tax relief package passed in the history of the state of North Dakota, and that's $358 million of that is going to be income tax relief, not collected, zero income tax. Lots of North Dakotans are going to find out that they're in a bracket where they are paying no income tax. And then the rest of the folks are going to have the lowest percentage, 1.95 is what most people are going to see as a income tax percentage. That'll be the lowest rate of any of the 41 states that are still doing income tax. Now, of course, we've got a goal to get to a zero income tax state. We've got competition out there. There's 9 states that have zero income tax. 3 of those, Alaska, Wyoming, Texas, big energy producing states. Our neighbor South Dakota, zero income tax state. That's where North Dakota has to get to. We can get there. We've got the resource to get there. We couldn't get all the way there this session, but we took a big step in that direction, and that's good news for us for recruiting workforce, which of course is a big issue, and it's great for retaining people that are here, and hardworking North Dakotans can keep their income in their own pockets.
We'll break down some of those highlights you mentioned as we go throughout the program today. What would you say was the biggest miss? Anything you're super disappointed about?
Well, I'd say there's always missed opportunity, but we got some significant things done on workforce, but could have done more. That's the number one thing that everybody's challenged with. But we had things in our budget that got cut, the executive budget that didn't make it through, but we still got, again, record amounts of investments towards workforce, and particularly a key piece of workforce is childcare infrastructure, and we did get virtually everything that we were looking for there to help those 45,000 families with kids under 5 stay in the workforce.
It seemed to me you were disappointed the school choice didn't come to you the way you wanted it to. In that your statement about it was, you want school choice, we got to do this, we need this in North Dakota, but yet you vetoed it. So explain why.
Well, that's an easy one to explain why, because, I was calling for it. We do need it. When I look at a couple of states that have made incredible progress, Arizona and Iowa, those 2 states, their school choice is money follows the student. We're spending about $11,000 per K-12 student, and they'll be in the second year of the biennium that the state of North Dakota is paying for public school. These states said, hey, we're going to take a portion. We pay more than those states, but they're going to take a portion. I'm talking like $6,000, $7,000 per student, and say, hey, the parents can decide whether that money is going money follows the student. It's state allocation. Is it going to go towards homeschooling? Is it going to go towards some alternative, a private school, or is it going to go towards the public school of their choice? All of a sudden now you got a market signal. You got parents saying, okay, we've got these dollars and we're going to direct those dollars. And in those 2 states, they took sort of 70, 80% of what the state would have paid to a public school and gave it to the parents. So it's a strong signal. And that creates real competition and real choice. What we ended up with at the end, we started with that idea. What we ended up with was, out of a $2.3 billion public school bill, there was $10 million basically of scholarships for existing kids going to existing private schools. And what that turned into was a situation where if I'd assigned that, it was going to get referred. It would have been defeated, because it would have been rural versus urban. It would have been public versus private. It would have been public schools versus what people might have called, religious back schools. And if they put it on and they refer it, then we're locked out for 7 years. We can't come back with the same kind of legislation. So we get one chance to do it right. We need to do it right, and having something that was less than 1% of it was like a half of 1% of the school budget was going to go towards scholarships towards existing existing kids going to existing parochial schools. That's not school choice for most North Dakotans. And so anyway, if we're going to do it, we got to do it right. There's examples of how Republican-led states have got it done. And Iowa is a rural state like ours. They got it done. So we just have to start now and figure out a way to create real competition, because this is the largest chunk of our budget is what we spend on K-12. And there's an opportunity for us when we do that. There's an opportunity to say, how do we spend that money and get even better outcomes for all of the kids? 125,000 kids in North Dakota, 65,000 kids under age 5 now heading into our system. I mean, it's great. We're a growing state. We've got one of the highest birth rates in the nation. We're now one of the youngest states. K-12 is about our future, and we got to be smart about how to have the best system in the nation.
Back with more with Governor Doug Burgum here today on the program. I want to ask you about actually a news item here, because the Fargo Public Schools last night had a school board meeting, and they say they're likely going to ignore the newly passed legislation in North Dakota, which is 1522, which I've seen as sort of free speech, right? You can't tell somebody that they can call me this and command your free speech rights. But obviously, you talked about this in your signing statement, and the concerns. What do you make of? And here's some of the comments. Robin Nelson. Well, I'll tell you first what Dr. Gandy said. When we see a conflict between federal law and state law, we're going to double down to advocate for our youth. This would be administration's request. Unless the board tells us otherwise, we will not openly out any student because of one law if we know that it's going to cause harm to that child. Unless dictated by the board otherwise, we will not participate in anything we think is going to subject students to further discrimination or increase their self-harm. And he was given a clean thumbs up from the board on that. One board member, Greg Clark, said, I think it's fairly clear what FPS is planning their flag to do. I'll remind those folks watching that we have open enrollment in North Dakota. Come to Fargo. So their defiance of state law being used to recruit students. What do you make of that?
Well, I think the first thing I'd say is that it would be important for everybody involved in this debate to actually read the law. It's basically about a page. Maybe it stretches just a little beyond one page, but pretty simple and pretty straightforward. And as you said right off the top, Scott, this just reaffirms everybody's First Amendment rights. And so I'm not sure what they're defying, because there's nothing in this law that's actually compelling them to do anything relative to free speech. And so that's the part that's a little bit confusing. So maybe it is a marketing statement. Maybe they're. I mean, I can't speculate. Haven't heard the transcript of the meeting, but it sounds more like fluff than reality. Because I just would say, before this thing spins out, everybody should just actually read the one pager and see what we're talking about. And I know that there's been was discussion about outing. There's nothing in this law that says, it just says that a school district and a teacher can't conceal or withhold information that a parent requests. That's just common sense. So this is basically a very common sense bill. It's not, and it's not. So again, if they're going to try to defy common sense, I mean, they should actually read the law, because I'm not sure what they're defying. If they're defying free speech, then that's a problem.
What do you make of them saying? I mean, they're pounding their chest, going to defy a law, school district in North Dakota. Is that wise?
Well, I don't think so, particularly when it seems to me that, at least from what I've read in some of the articles, there may be some misunderstanding of what the law actually says.
Let's go back to one of your highlights on workforce. And one of the things you said, you were hoping there'd be some more dollars there. It was a little less than your budget, but what is there? What is it going to do? What is going to be the ROI on this investment? Well,
the first thing we just have to understand is again, it's a great position to be second lowest in the nation in unemployment. We're in a part of the country, this upper part of the Great Plains. Number one lowest unemployment right now is South Dakota. We're tied with Nebraska, 2.1%. That's about half of what the rest of the nation is. Could be over 35,000 jobs open in the state of North Dakota. And of course, a lot of those jobs include jobs where if we had, say, oil field workers, that we could have more rigs working, more fracking crews going here, then that's, direct revenue, really high ROI on those jobs, because that brings more revenue into the state of North Dakota, which, funds infrastructure, schools, et cetera. So part of that is getting skilled workforce to move to North Dakota, and with a new program which we're running called Find the Good Life. There's support in there for that, which again, there's a lot of people that are leaving blue states looking to come to red states. We just want to have a place where they can go to, one stop, find out, hey, if I'm interested in moving to North Dakota, can I get a house? Is there schools? Can I get childcare? What are the jobs? And really try to recruit, individuals, skilled workers, and families to move from other states here. So that's key. And of course, on the legal immigration side, we know that from an ag standpoint, we have about 2,500 H-2A farm workers that come. CDL drivers help us get the crop off every year. If they're not coming from places like South Africa legally, some of them are coming back every year working with the same farm families. That program's got to be expanded. I mean, we have to have that kind of skilled workforce here. And then we do have money in there for regional workforce grants, so that if you've got places like Williston, Watford, Minot, places where we supporting like our energy industry, they can tailor programs there. Here in Fargo and Cass County, where we've got a lot of advanced manufacturing, these grants will go out to the local job development corporations and the local economic development folks. So we can't have a one-size-fits-all for the state. We can't have a Find the Good Life, which is like a portal where we can bring people in and then get them connected locally, and then the rest of this goes out locally. And then on the child care side, again, $66 million to work on affordability, accessibility, and quality of childcare. Again, that's the number one barrier right now. I mean, we get thousands of people off the sidelines and back to work if they had access to affordable, high quality childcare. So that's a result of about 15 months of work ahead of the legislature, done by parents, done by childcare providers, done by employers. There's matches in there for employers if they want to help support their employees to get childcare and get back to work. So we think that's a fantastic program and a key part of workforce infrastructure.
I know there's no silver bullet in workforce. Everybody's fighting this everywhere around the country. But for North Dakota, what do you see as the lowest hanging fruit to have of all those things you just described that's going to have the most potential to bring people here?
Well, I think part of it's bringing people here, but again, when we've got work to do and then people to do it, part of what we have to do as a state of North Dakota, because we're not a Sun Belt state. We're always going to have, unless we can get 30,000 people to move south from Winnipeg, getting 30,000 people to move north and take jobs, always going to be a little more difficult. But
not going to happen. So grow your own
we'll grow our own, which is again why we've got $70 million into CT. But the other thing which we've always done is when we think about agriculture, think about the amount of production that we produce today versus 20 years ago, 40 years ago, 100 years ago, because we got so good at scale and at automation. And we did have a larger tax incentive in our budget for automation tax credits, because instead of trying to produce 10 welders at one of our universities, how about we produce one that knows how to run a robotic welder that does the work of 10 people? So automation's got to be one of the key things when we've got a workforce shortage.
Interesting.